Hello, Herlighters. It's Erin Foley back in the booth talking women's sports. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Yes, I do sound still nasally, still down for the count. Not completely down for the count, but I got the COVID. I got the big COVID. Third time is not a charm. Let me tell you that much. It's pretty funny that every time you tell someone that you have COVID, they immediately respond with the seven people that they know that also have COVID, and they mention their names. They're like, "Oh my God, my buddy Matt, and Brian, Janet, and Lucy." I'm just making up names here. It's almost like a contest, like who knows the most amount of people that have COVID. But anyway, I don't know. Stay inside, wear a mask. It's floating around. So be safe out there, people. Really excited for this episode today because it's hoops. It's all about hoops. If you're watching this on YouTube, I've got my WNBA sweatshirt on, ready to talk hoops all episode. I've got a fantastic sports journalist, Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, with me, and we're going to get into it. Before I bring her on, we had some breaking news a couple of days ago. Then Cameron Brink, one of our superstar rookies, she plays for the LA Sparks, tore her ACL, and just an awful injury. Not only does it stop this season, but she was supposed to be on the Olympic 3-on-3 basketball team, and now she can't go to the Olympics. And it's just, oh God, it just kind of breaks my heart. And I know she's sitting there like, why now? Why at this time? Anyway, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and it just sort of harkened back to me playing basketball, obviously not at her level, just a parallel story. I was just obsessed with basketball growing up. That was like my main sport. Played in junior high. I played in high school. I played in college. I had some D2 scholarships, but I knew I would just like ride the bench for probably 3 years. So I went to playing in a D3 school. And we played just because we absolutely loved it. There was no scholarship, but we just literally played because we loved the game. And our coach thought she was Pat Summit, and she wasn't. She was a terrible, she was a terrible coach. This is just like a D3 college in Pennsylvania, and just like screaming at us. And we had all these shin splints, and we would she'd make us like put our legs in ice buckets, but we'd still be on the court. It was just ridiculous. At one point I was playing power forward. I'm 5'8". I got like my ass handed to me every single game. But it was just, whatever. We played because we loved it. And throughout that particular season, my back just started really hurting. But then, you just keep going. I had like ice packs and heat packs on at halftime, but I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. So in the spring of that year, I think it was like, spring break or something. I was at a friend of mine's parents' house, and they had a hoop outside their house, and it was like an 8-foot hoop. And I'm like, oh my God, I can dunk. Like the most exciting thing is to be able to dunk a basketball, obviously on a lowered rim. But even in high school, we would practice sometimes right after the wrestling team had practice, right? So they would roll up the wrestling mats, and they would probably be about 3 feet off the ground, 2 or 3 feet off the ground. And we would run down the court, jump off the wrestling mat, and dunk the basketball until our coach found out, and they're like, all right, you're all going to die. And then we couldn't do it anymore. But it is just like the most amazing feeling to dunk a basketball. So I'm on spring break, and I see it's like, 7-foot hoop, and I just start going crazy. And I'm dunking, and we're like, swinging around, pretending we're, the world's greatest basketball players. So about an hour later, I'm like, God, my back is really, God, it's just really bothering me. And I can't sit, and I'm in so much pain. Well, it turns out I completely effed my back. I had 2 herniated discs. I had pain down my leg, and I could barely finish that semester. Anybody that has had any back or disc issues, which I think is pretty much everybody, knows how bad that feeling is. I was doing sitting for exams on pillows. Anyway, did a lot of PT over the summer, cortisone shots, but I just basically screwed up my back really bad. So I was supposed to study abroad that year, and I couldn't because I could barely function. I barely got back to college, and I couldn't play basketball. So here I am. My entire identity is an athlete, and I can't physically play. And I kept thinking, like, what am I going to do now? And a friend of mine was like, Erin, you're really funny. You should join this improv troupe. And I was like, oh my God, no way in hell am I doing that. Anyway, she signed me up for this audition, and she was just like, she just made me go. And I was like, all right, I'll just go. Like, what else am I doing? Right. So I wound up making this improv troupe. Now, I know a lot of people make fun of improv, but good improv is just so amazing. This was probably like okay improv. But I kind of found this unexpected thing, and it kind of saved me. And so I did improv for the last 2 years of college. I went up doing a play senior year, a comedy, and it sort of just changed the trajectory of my life. I moved to New York City with my sisters, and I auditioned for some improv and then got into stand up, which led me to writing. And there's my entire career. And if I had not hurt my back, there's just no way I would have gotten into the world of comedy. It wasn't on my radar. I'd never seen stand up before. I'd never even seen improv before. So it's just like this moment I was thinking about with Brink's injury. It's like you just never know when it happens, why it happens. But I feel like she's just going to probably have all these moments during rehab that are going to change her for the rest of her life. And she had an incredible, post on social media about, not being deterred and going to come back, stronger than ever. And I completely believe that. But there is something that she's going to learn or go through, or that she needs this experience to get to another level. You just can't see it when it's happening. You just never know what's going to be waiting for you on the other side. But I will tell you something I do know. Our guest today is fantastic. We've got Lyndsey D'Arcangelo in the booth with us today. I don't know why I said us. It's just me and the poster of Serena Williams to the left of my face. Lyndsey is an award-winning writer, over 20 years of experience being a national sports writer with focus on women's sports, particularly basketball. Her work has been in Awful Announcing, The Athletic, Fast Company, Just Women's Sports, NBC.com, ESPN. She's written for all the outlets. We had such a fun conversation talking about the WNBA, so let's jump right in. I've watched this league forever, but not covered it professionally, obviously. But I was so pumped, going into the season. And I felt like it took like a real sharp turn.
We all felt that way.
I did not expect it to be some Caitlin Clark versus the league, Angel Reese versus the league. I just was like, wait, this is the storyline we're going with out of all the, fanfare and super teams and new recruits and all this stuff. And so let's just touch on that. And then we'll go into like some fun highlights, lowlights. But I felt like we were all delivered a curveball. So you in the media, tell us, tell me about that.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for other people. I'll even though I feel like the sentiment is pretty similar, but I'll just say on my end, yeah, I mean, talk about a curveball. I knew going in, Caitlin Clark was going to be a buzz and the focus and the topic of conversation. I mean, the attention she brought to the NCAA and with Iowa being in the championship game, and unfortunately they weren't able to get the win. I was rooting for Caitlin. Like I thought, what a great ending. A storybook ending to an incredible college career if they would have been able to do that. But still, beating LSU, like the rematch to even get to the championship game. I mean, there was so much to talk about. And I felt like overall, the dialogue was a lot about basketball, and it stayed with, the realm of court. And then the draft, hyped up for the draft, lots of talk about the entire rookie class coming in and all the different players. And then it's like as soon as training camp went underway and the season started, it just went, it went crazy to the, it veered way off the road. And the conversation got so toxic so quickly. I think it took a lot of us by surprise. The way it's being, her name is an image is being politicized, by certain factions. It's like, wait a minute. This isn't what we were talking about when we said we wanted more eyes on the sport and more conversation. Yeah. I mean, I love new fans. I have been hearing so many stories from regular Joe Schmoes to celebrities who are like, I never cared about the WNBA. I started following Caitlin Clark, I watched the draft, and got me to start watching the WNBA. Some have even bought season tickets. And, they've started paying attention to other games and other players. That's what we want. That's what the Caitlin Clark effect should be. And to me, really is about. But then when you have other people jumping into the space who act like they know everything without any historical context, without any, nuance or understanding of how this league functions and the other players in it and the dynamics involved and the makeup of the league, from a diversity standpoint, it's like became overwhelmingly like, what are we even talking about? And that's where it's just gotten to be like a bit much. But I'm hoping, and I think we've seen it this week at least, that it's calming down a bit after the Olympic roster was announced and that all nonsense petered out. I feel like we're back to focusing on basketball. And I hope the majority of the conversation, because you're still going to have the outliers, stays that way for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I just felt like in the last week or two after the insanity of the Olympic roster, which we'll get into, this week especially, even the coverage of the Indiana Sky game this past week, which broke, the most watched game in 23 years. It was covered better. There wasn't like a complete utter backlash. Obviously, it just takes some time, but the new eyeballs and these crazy opinions where you're like, could you check that shit, you leave that for your political horrifying comments, take that out of the basketball space, because again, we should be, if we're talking about Olympic roster, we should be talking about like the merits and how they're playing and how you play as a team. Not, I can't believe you put this one on and didn't take care. Yeah, it seems so ridiculous, but I do feel like it's calming down for sure.
Yeah, and women's sports, women's leagues in general have always been held to a different standard by media, by businessmen who are investing or not investing, by society who don't want to give them the time and space to grow as a league. You see a lot of the old ways of thinking and the stereotypical ways of thinking just being brought to the forefront because the league has now hit the mainstream. And a lot of people who haven't seen the physicality in the WNBA, who don't know that women can play just as hard as men, sometimes even a little bit rougher, right? And they're pearl clutching, they're gasping, they're like, oh my God, that's a flagrant foul. No, that's bad for the game. It's like, it's part of the game. Like, what game are we talking about here? We're talking about basketball, right? We're not talking about, it's played the same way. Yes, it's played with a smaller ball. Yes, it's played on a shorter 3-point line, whatever. These little intricacies, right? But the rules and the game and the way it's the strategy involved, all of it, like, this is the sport. This is basketball. And the fact that there's these undertones that women have to be protected, especially, the quote unquote savior, Caitlin Clark, as people are portraying her as this, they want to baby her and protect her. For what? She doesn't need it. Nobody needs it. None of them need it. And it's the majority of people saying this are men. It's like they don't know how to treat women as athletes. And as somebody who wrote a book about a league from the 1970s, it was the same way of thinking. They don't know what to do with it. And it's funny because I wrote a column about this for Awful Announcing at the end of the college season, saying that I don't think mainstream media is fully prepared to handle the discourse and the conversation or how to cover women's basketball, women's sports in general. And they've proven me right so far.
What we're seeing is just an absolute example, unfortunately, that happens on the basketball court, is a larger picture of society. Let's say at least 30% of the population hold women to submissive and, less than a man. And these are our roles. And then they get eyeballs on the WNBA. And this is the exact opposite of how they feel. They're uncomfortable with Black women. They're uncomfortable with lesbians. They're uncomfortable with physicality. They're uncomfortable with women having agency, And so then the backlash is like, when people are like, that's assault. And you're like, that is a pick and roll, you dumb idiot. And it's like, hi, welcome to the real world. These women are like the most kick-ass examples of what women should be, of role models, in society. And people have real problems with that. So I'm not surprised, but I am surprised at the level of insanity that's been going on. You're right. It's dumb comments by dumb.
Yeah. You knew there was going to be some I don't even want to call it backlash, but like some outliers, some
Yeah.
trolling, some comments in that regard. But to this level of intensity, and where you have nationally known, well-known sports personalities, making these videos and doing these podcasts and making clips and talking the way they're talking and referring to these women, like I said, as delicate flowers or petty, calling them petty and jealous. What bothers me about that is then that narrative seeps into the lexicon of everyday Joes. And I know it does. Like people, oh, it's only on Twitter. Well, no. What's talked about on Twitter especially drives a lot of media conversation on cable news and other writers who pay attention to what people are talking about. And then it seeps into the everyday life, because just last weekend, when Angel Reese accidentally fouled Caitlin Clark because she was going for the ball. I mean, you could watch the replay 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And not like we haven't seen that happen in the NBA how many friggin' times. My own father, who doesn't pay attention to the WNBA, and I called him just to say hi on Father's Day, was like, oh, so what's going on with all this, with this Caitlin Clark? What did he call it? He used some word where it was like some sort of, conspiracy or something like that. And I was like, controversy. That's what he said. What's going on with this Caitlin Clark controversy and nobody wanting her to be in the league and all this stuff? It's like, Dad, there's no controversy. Like, I didn't even want to get into it with him.
Yeah.
I played basketball. I played pickup with some guys and girls. It's a co-ed mix on the weekends. One of the guys, why is everybody hating on Caitlin Clark? Why are they so jealous? Like, they're hearing this from somewhere.
Yes.
And then I was at a bar last weekend too. Same thing. Ran into this guy I know. One of the first things, I got to ask you something. Like, you know what I would love? I would love if each one of them was like, hey, the WNBA is really kind of cool. Like, I'm into it now. I watch Caitlin Clark. Now I'm watching the WNBA. That's what I want to hear, because that's the Caitlin Clark, what the Caitlin Clark effect, like I said earlier, should be.
Yeah.
This other nonsense, what they're hearing, like, and it gets regurgitated, that does not help grow the game. It doesn't help support the sport or the WNBA or the players who have already been there. Like, get your heads out of your asses. Like,
we're
not asking for much here.
I know, and that's the thing is, going back to your first point, it's like a lot of male journalists don't know how to cover women's sports, but men don't know how to talk to women or about women. Honestly, on the smallest level, I play a lot of pickleball in West Hollywood, and when you're playing with women, it's like, it's fine, you're just playing, right? But when it's mixed, in open play and stuff, like, and you'll hit a good shot, and I'm not even that good. I just like to play. It's just fun. A guy will go, a good one, like, just awkward. They're weird. They're like, oh, or they'll start mansplaining, and you're like, dude, just be a fucking normal human being. I watched this real quick interview with Enrique, and she was on, I don't know what it's called, late night or something, and it's Shannon Sharp and Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco, whatever. Seeing him try to talk to Enrique, and he was honestly trying as a human being and as a man, saying, I went to my first WNBA game. Basically, what he was saying is, I didn't know women could play basketball. Yeah. And he was stumbling through it, trying to be complimentary. And he's like, wow, I went to one. And, my boys are always like, well, WNBA. And he's like, no, I mean, these women can play, and you're just like, you are a professional athlete with a professional, show talking about, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable how they can't even get a sentence out.
Honestly, what did they think women did? And I say we, because, I'm an athlete myself, not a professional. What? Yeah. Sit around and drink tea? Like, when this league has existed, like, what did they think they were doing? They were playing basketball, and that's the other thing. If you had paid attention just a little sooner, you would have been prepared. You would have known. Yeah. You would have been prepared for this moment. I really appreciate Colin Cowherd and Bomani Jones, because those two guys have come right up from the get and said, we're the problem. We're the ones who are fragile. They're not. They're fine. It's us. Bomani Jones has literally said, we were not prepared for this. Men in sports, we're not prepared. And I could cite a ton of examples that have happened, whether it's with writers or on, people in sports journalism who have platforms. All of it. I could, even on just doing tweets on Twitter or whatever, or X, whatever you want to call it. I could cite many examples that have occurred since the start of the season to now, where I could say, here, look, this is how you know they aren't ready to handle it.
Yeah.
We could go back to Greg Doyle's heart that he did, to Caitlin. Like, why is it so? That is the main question I have. Why is it so hard to treat women like athletes? I don't understand that, because there's always this less than, men are up here and women are here, and it's in a lot of professions, almost every profession. I gotta believe they're here in that profession, and we're down here, even though it's the same profession, and we can do it the same way, and sometimes even better than they can. It's just, it's frustrating.
So it's unbelievably frustrating. And I just hope maybe as the game grows and more of these dudes calm down and maybe have a moment of just watching it as a fantastic sport that it is, maybe it has the ability to change their minds, and
I think it does.
Of what women can do on and off the court. Listen, I can't believe I'm saying this, because when I was talking about the WNBA, literally when I rebooted this podcast, I said my hope going into the season is that you go for Caitlin Clark and you come back for your home team. That was my goal. The Sparks, we average, I live in LA now, and I'm ride or die Liberty, but my Sparks are my second team. We've been averaging, 8 to 10,000 pretty consistently. Nothing, outstanding. And then the bigger games, like, throughout the years, I would say 2016, 17, our battles with the Lynx, we'll probably get 16, 17. It's amazing. But I was there at the Fever game a couple weeks ago, and it was, whatever it was, 19 plus, almost, that large, higher number than the highest number that the Lakers got over the season. And then now after that, I'm seeing now when I go to the Sparks, or even if I don't, I'll look at the attendance, under the box score. And I went to the Vegas game, and there was, I think it was 12 or something like that. I'm like, I do feel like it's all headed in the right direction as far as that, but hopefully on a higher level with society and dumb men, it'll get better.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're always going to have guys who have that old way of thinking, and they're not going to change. They're not going to expand their view. But I've seen plenty of men, and I know plenty of guys who are supportive and who have changed their minds, or who have just always been, in on uplifting the WNBA from years back, who have been covering it or either watching it or big fans. There's plenty of them out there. I'm not going to paint a wide brush. It's just some of the voices that we're hearing from right now are just a little bit larger, a little bit louder, and have bigger platforms.
Yeah. And hopefully they'll check themselves as it progresses, and they'll just start, as you said, just reporting on the game. So that's that. Let's talk some fun, nerdy season stuff. Highlights, lowlights so far. Give me a couple. We'll start with some highlights.
It's definitely Asia Wilson.
Wow.
Her usage, and I keep saying this because it's amazing to me. Her usage is like 30-something%, which means she's getting the ball a lot. The offense is going through her a lot. She's working on the defensive end, involved in plays a lot. And her efficiency rating is 36.4, which is 10 points higher than Brianna Stewart. So if you just look at that right there, then 10 points higher than Napheesa Collier too. So not only does she have the ball a lot, she's efficient with it. She's scoring, blocking shots, having a positive effect on both ends of the court. We saw her play at a high level last year, especially in the latter part of the season. And to see her just raise her game even higher. I mean, she wasn't kidding when she said that fourth place MVP vote was still on her mind. Talk about a highlight. My goodness.
Yeah, I got tickets for the Sparks Aces behind the Aces bench, partly because now I've accidentally turned my partner into an Aces fan. Anyway, that's another subject. I got her so excited about the WNBA that now she's locked in with the Aces. So I wanted to get her, tickets behind the bench. To see Asia Wilson like that close, you cannot take your eyes off of her, even like TV, whatever. And now I feel like she's just like taking a page out of the Candace Parker book where she just rips down a rebound and then dribbles it down the court and scores. Like she's added that to her game. Her off season must have included absolutely no social plans and just like, mainlining protein powder. She just, it's unbelievable.
Well, she got a book published, went on a book tour too during all of that. I mean, she's just great all around, and as a leader and just a genuine human being. I mean, you could see her in press conferences, the things she says, the accountability she has. That's a true veteran. That's a true all-star. That's a true leader. She's so good for this league. And another highlight I'll hop to is this rookie class, the entire rookie class. I mean, yeah, we know about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and their budding rivalry, which I think is also very good for the league. But across the board, I don't think we're talking about enough about how NIL has helped elevate and bring in more fandom to the pro, because for years the WNBA has been trying to figure out how to bridge that gap because people weren't following college players to the WNBA. It would fall off. And now that you have NIL, where these players have their own brands, they have their own followers on social media, through all that, they've built up this reputation, national reputation amongst not only amongst their school community, but on the national landscape. And then you take that combined with their talent to the pros. I mean, you're bringing a lot with you. And I think we've seen the impact of that the most this season. And that's going to continue years to come, and especially as you look down the pipe and the talent coming up in future rookie classes. But they're fun. They're fashionable.
They are fun.
They seem more seasoned in front of the mic, more comfortable, standing on their own business and it being about who they are and staying true to who they are. And got to give them grace too. They're so young. There's going to be evolution that happens over the course of their first 5 years in the league and whatever as they get older. But I've just been so impressed, not only with all of that off-court stuff, but then you throw them right into the mix and they're balling.
I know they're playing so well.
They're balling. Angel, I feel so bad for Cameron Brink and the injury she just had. It's gutting. But Angel Reese pulling 7 double doubles in a row, the first rookie in history to ever do that. She's been impressive. Caitlin has finally, I feel like, settled in to her role with Indiana, and is playing off her team better. Her and Aaliyah Boston, you could see their relationship on the court developing to what we kind of thought it would be. She's just comfortable is the word, because that's what it feels like. She just seems more adept and settled.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point about the NIL, and because year after year, CAA, like March Madness for the women, it's like you're sellouts, and like this has been going around when people are like, wow, Caitlin Clark and the Iowa and all of that in South Carolina, wow, March Madness is so fun. I was like, it has been this level of play and this craziness for so long. I want people to go back and be like, look at the Notre Dame, like UConn, Mississippi, Enrique, like, if that happened now, that would have been like that would have been on the Caitlin Clark level of like insanity,
I agree.
So it's been this way for so long, but you're right. It hasn't, really jumped to the attendance and eyeballs on that WNBA. So that NIL, that's a great point. I had a couple of highlights. My highlights were 2 players, which I feel like really found their homes, and Kaleah Copper in Phoenix and Chennedy Carter in Chicago. I feel like they are just thriving. Chennedy Carter's problematic at times. Her behavior in the last couple of years, she didn't even play in the league last year. But when I saw that roster of her going to Chicago, because she's so exciting to watch, I think she's just unbelievable. And then I thought, well, Teaspoon, who obviously I'm obsessed with since day one, since the New York Liberty, 97, Teaspoon a role model, if they can get Carter just to play and get out of her head and do her basketball thing, that's going to be, you already see it. I think she makes the All-Star game. I mean, if I'm picking right now, I want to see her in an All-Star game. And Kaleah Hopper obviously has been great, but I feel like she's like next level now with Tarazi and Griner, and so I feel like those for me were big highlights this season so far.
Yeah, Phoenix has been real fun to watch. You weren't really sure how that roster was going to gel, but you can see the chemistry. They like each other.
Yeah.
They get along, and you could see that them feeding off of that on the court itself. And you love when that transfers over from off the court to on the court. I genuinely enjoy playing together. And then that system that they play in where it's just run and gun, fast pace, green light to shoot whenever, wherever, and throw Brittany Griner back into the mix now. They're a lot of fun to watch. That's definitely a highlight. Connecticut Sun doing as well as they are, and Dejanay Carrington, the season she's having, definitely top of the list for me for most improved player. She's completely transformed and embraced a starting position and being asked to do much more on both ends of the court. Defensively, she's just been so good. I love her intensity. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Minnesota Lynx, every year they're low on my radar. I don't know what it is about, because sure, we've always put together like a competitive roster, but then you're like, nothing really stands out. And then they get on the court, it's like, oh yeah. Piece of Colliard, dang. They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Orca's like throwing in threes from behind a bench. I'm like, where did that come from? You're right there. It is always a team that doesn't, like, going into the season. I was like, how's like the new three going to gel in Seattle? And you can say that about Phoenix. And I was like, is Liberty finally, I mean, as a diehard fan, I'm like, are they finally going to win one? And you're like, who's going to beat Vegas? I wasn't even thinking about Minnesota. And I think that just speaks to how good of a coach she is. She gets the most out of every single player.
She gets the most. Yep.
And it's always so impressive. Always so impressive. All right, let's jump into some lowlights. What are some lowlights? Well, we already we talked about the toxic
talked a lot
part.
about the toxic conversation. I think that's
probably the ultimate
low
light. Yeah, that is the ultimate low light. Yeah.
I will say Kennedy's body check of Caitlin, especially when I saw it happen, I was like, not these two players.
I know.
Not these two players. Because it fed into everything. It fed into this false narrative that people were trying to push about jealousy and race and targeting, fell into all of that. And it just, I as two competitive basketball players who were clearly jawing at each other during the game, any other two players, we'd have been like, yep, let's move on. In fact, we've seen clips of other players getting in each other's faces. So when that happened, the play itself wasn't necessarily a low light. Like, Kennedy lost her cool. And like you said, she's got a history of that. And I love that Teaspoon is the coach, because I feel like she's the voice that Kennedy needs to hear to switch that around, to take that energy that she has, but use it for good, like use it on the court, like get them back with points, instead of resulting into doing something like that.
It's bad.
That's what bothered me about it, was the fact that it fed into the narrative and the conversation that popped up after that, the term assault being thrown around, the fact that, what was it? The Chicago Tribune editorial.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
Wrote an editorial of their own accord calling it assault, and that some congressman, I'm not even going to say the name, wrote a letter to the WNBA about it, and how
it's so dumb. It's so Draymond Green.
I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe this is real life. Like, where are we? Are we back in the 1950s? Like,
for part of the country we are. I mean, look at this is what I'm saying. It's just like, it's just an example, weaponizing it, politicizing, whatever you want to call, for this percentage of the country that wants women in the kitchen. I mean, it's just so clear. But
it's troubling.
It is troubling, because I always am like, second chances, let's do this. I'm really, honestly, truly cheering for Chennedy Carter, because I think she's so dynamic and so fun. And backstories and upbringings, and they're also so young. So that to me, I was like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
not not crazy surprise, but I just was like, okay, well, hopefully that's it, and that'll be, she'll check the rest. Yeah, Dallas injuries, I think, are really bumming me out
Low
because
light. Yeah.
that is to me probably the one of the biggest lowlights, because I felt like they had so much like momentum and excitement, made the playoffs and fun mix of players. And now it just feels like, I know they're getting some back. Howard is coming back. Sabali, I don't know when she's coming back, but it just kind of feels like they're just kind of gutted and bummed out. So, and they have like, new court coming, and I felt like there was all this momentum for them. But with Enrique, listen, anything is possible. She can go off for like, 70 points any night. But
Yeah, injuries have been rough. The Cameron Brink one recently, that's
oh,
definitely a low light. Just feel so, so bad for her. Roughing, technicals, WNBA refs, low light. It's
right.
been all over the board. It's just, for years we've talked about the inconsistency, and I know that the league meets at the end of the season to try to improve calls and this and that. And I think challenges and stuff is a way to help mitigate that. But overall, some of the refereeing has just been so questionable.
It's so bad. I wonder, maybe these are all new reps that are experiencing the WNBA
Some
for
of them are
time.
vets that have been around. That's the
I
funny
know,
part,
I know. I feel like there's too many now. You know what I mean? Like it's either they miss the call or it's just like let them play. There's nothing more of a buzzkill.
Yeah.
I think the players would say this too. But as a fan, you're like, oh my God, the stops and the starts. Listen, I would do the same thing. If I just airballed a shot or just was a crappy shot, I'd be like, come on, she it's like save me the embarrassment. She slapped me on the wrist, but like it's the ticky tacky stuff. I'm like, unless someone gets tackled, honestly, like just let them run around. And I I
Yeah.
I love the physicality. I mean, I think that's like one of my favorite parts. So, yeah, it's just dumb.
I mean, it's next level. It's what separates the physicality, the speed of the game, the X's and O's. That's and the athleticism. That's what separates from the college game to the pros. And that's where the biggest adjustment is for rookies. That's their biggest hurdle to get over and to get used to transition to. It's why some top draft picks, either end up getting cut or waived at some in training camp or during the year because or season, excuse me, because it's just they couldn't
Yeah.
make the leap. That's not to say that they can't work to get there. I mean, we've seen that with Emily Engstler. I love that she's landed in Washington and she's been able to stick to the roster, but it's been a couple of years of working really hard and going to play overseas just to, get her feet under her as far as that goes.
She was Louisville, right?
Yep.
I try to watch at least, every team play once or twice. And I was like, it's fun to see someone like her. And I go, wait a minute, how do I know that one? I was like, I feel like that's the Dana Evans, Louisville, like that team. But yeah, and she's probably not even getting half the playing time if Della Dunn doesn't come back. And yeah, it's just that's why the expansion, it's like, God, I know it has to be done, systematically and business and all that stuff, but it just feels like there should be 5 new teams next season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, let's go, let's go. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's happening enough, because then when you get to see players, especially like some players on Dallas that would have never gotten this playing time, if it wasn't for
Yeah.
injuries, then you think expansion, like Kate Martin and Tiffany Hayes, like they were holding down the fort. Kate Martin and Tiff Hayes.
Kate's another highlight. I know I said the
Yeah.
rookie class,
Yeah.
but I would love to separate her out because her story is just so fun. How can
So
you not
fun.
want to root for this kid? Just her attitude, her willingness to go in and want to work for everything. She's just so endearing, and the team obviously loves her and supports her, and they have her back in so many ways. And she's proven herself on the court, like to be
Yeah.
a valuable asset. And you could see the connection between her and Becky Hammon. I think has a really high basketball IQ, which Becky loves, but the work ethic is there too. So yeah, that's another highlight.
First of all, just the draft night. I mean, I cry very
Yeah.
easily for sports stuff. And then when they're like, putting her on the outside seat, I was like, wait. I just assumed she wasn't honestly, obviously she was a great basketball player, but like the level of competition is so high. It's so hard to even
Yeah.
make it on a team. And then it was Vegas Aces. I was just like, I just was so confused. It's not like I didn't think she could play in the WNBA. It was just purely level up, like not enough spots, and there's so much competition. But to see her go to
Yeah.
the Aces, then to see her, I mean, every step of the way. I hate saying this, and it's nothing against her because I love her. I just assumed she was going to get cut. I really did because again, just of the level of competition. Then she makes it, so I'm absolutely thrilled. And then she plays. It's been so awesome. But I think, they kept saying when she was playing at Iowa, it's like she's going to coach. Her dad's a coach. Like they mentioned the word coach like 790 times. So I just assumed she was going to start, being an assistant coach. I don't know, in high school or collegiate level. But now I feel like she's just going to play and then going to be Becky Hammond's assistant. Like I just feel like she's going to stay with the Aces and
She may end up doing more than that. Like that's what I'm talking about, where the X's and O's are different at the pro level.
yeah,
But if you have the mind for it and you can
yeah,
grasp it, because you're going from more simplistic schemes and general schemes in college to more convoluted schemes in basketball or in WNBA at the pro level, and it's like some people can't make that jump, even as
yeah,
good as natural skilled as they may be. And I think that's where what we saw with the Asia Fair, she is a pure scorer. She is so talented, but I think the speed of the game and from a defensive standpoint, understanding the X's and O's was just not there yet. And that's not to say she won't get there, but that was an asset for Kate going in. She's also the type of player. I mean, her physical build is built for the WNBA, but she also is one of those players who does all the hustle plays and
yeah,
the little things, the
yeah.
things that add up, the things that make a difference. You gotta have one of those players on your team.
Absolutely. That's just building a championship right there. And yeah, Becky knows it. So this is like a totally random sidebar, but when you're talking about that, it just reminded me of Aya Cook. I thought she played so well at the beginning of the season in LA last year, and I'm really wondering why that's not happening for such a high level of basketball coming out of South Carolina. That has that has surprised me more than like the fair out of Syracuse because she is very small in stature on the defense, as you're saying, that's tougher. But I don't know. I think we drafted her number one or, in our first draft in the first round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never really know how it's going to translate. That's why even with Caitlin Clark, people were like, well, she's not going to go in and dominate. Very rare does that happen. That's why that's why Candace Parker is the only player in history to win MVP and Rookie of the Year the same season. It's that was an anomaly, you know.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think people expected it too. And Candace Parker is Mount Rushmore. I was, I think to me, besides my absolute obsession with Diana Taurasi, because I grew up a UConn fan. So I've been watching her for so long and I love her so much. That Candace Parker to me is my favorite player to ever watch. I really do. Taurasi's number one. But Candace, I just had never seen anyone do that. I never seen anyone grab a rebound, sprint down the court with like the ball handling of a guard, and then
Yep.
dunk it. To this day, I'm just like, I cannot believe I got to watch her career. Like it feels
Yep.
like so incredible. All right, we'll pivot real quick. Olympic roster. Do you agree, disagree? And then of course, I'm just because I have to. Would you have taken Clark and the Rebecca Lobo? If you take Clark, who would you take out?
It's so funny because I've been asked this question numerous times and since the roster came out by
Yeah.
different people. And I am just so indifferent. Like you never know what the final roster is going to be. They always put out an incredibly talented roster. Yes, politics are always at play, so some players are getting left off for reasons that they maybe shouldn't. Candace Parker, let's just throw that in. Like whatever.
Unbelievable.
Neka Ogumake. So that
Yeah.
something like that is
Arike.
bound to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then when you look at this roster, I mean, this is an all-star team.
It's
This
an all.
is multiple championship winners on one team. You know, these are people who just have already left their mark on this league.
Yeah.
I mean, who do you take off? And then the conversation about Clark, I personally don't think she was ready. I don't think she would have gotten a lot of playing time. She struggled a little bit with the physicality of the WNBA at the beginning of the season. Falling against European teams is way tougher than that. They are way more physical. We're also so deep at guard.
I know.
So deep. Like you just said, Enrique didn't even make it. Like I don't know who you swap her out for. I don't agree with the marketing argument. I understand it. I get it. That to me, I feel like with the momentum with this where women's basketball is at right now, and the momentum that was brought in and what's going on, I think this team is going to draw numbers anyway. I think viewership is still going to be up from it's been in previous years with or without Caitlin. Now, would have been higher with her? I'm sure. But I still think people who genuinely came to the WNBA as Clark fans with an open mind will still be interested.
Absolutely.
Will still want to see this team play and win a gold medal. You know, is how I feel about it overall. Like I'm just excited for the players who made it, especially the first timers. Taurasi's going for what, her 6th gold medal?
It's unbelievable.
Like, yeah, unbelievable.
Who wants to call Taurasi? I heard, you know, like there's chatter like, oh, you know, she's going for 6. Clark should do. Yeah. I'm like, you call her. You call her. Brad, we'll see how well in Ohio and see how that goes. I mean, also when you're looking at it, to your point, you know, I think what people don't realize, obviously you and I realize it, and people that have been obsessed with it for a long time, but the 2023 numbers were huge. I don't think that gets referenced enough. Highest attendance in 13 years, most watched season in 21 years. This isn't just Clark Reese graduate, and you know what I mean? This is building and building and building.
It's been building, yeah.
And so this, of course, is another level. So it's not like not having Clark on this Olympic roster now shuts down basketball. You know, we're looking at the absolute best of the best. I think it's a little bit of a timing problem too for Clark, you know?
Yeah, it mostly was.
I mean, if this is next year, okay, she probably makes it, and maybe Taurasi doesn't. But
I don't know about that. I think
or Ionescu, but like Sabrina feels like they've all earned it. I can't make any argument on any one player to take them out. Sabrina actually, I think, is, you know, playing a lot better than last year.
Oh, she's having a great year.
Because at the end of last year, I thought she needs, of course, I'm watching this drinking a beer and nachos. I'm just saying, and I'm a huge fan of hers. Like, I felt like she got a little bit exposed in the playoffs, especially against Connecticut. Like Tiffany Hayes was like owning her, and she became almost a defensive liability at times. And I think this year, she has just really upped her game, and she's been involved in USA basketball for a long time. So all of it. I think they all absolutely, you're going to tell like, you know, Alyssa Thomas, like the newcomers are like some of the best, I think are going to be some of the best ever to play the game. So, you know, I absolutely agree with the team. And I think of course you can make an argument of youth and eyeballs and growing the global game, and okay, but I don't know. I have no problem with it, and I have no problem leaving her off. Besides, they were making this decision, 6 weeks ago or something, when she was getting bounced all over the court and just you know, like a deer in headlights at times, as she should have been. So
well, and also there's important context again that was being left out of the conversation. She wasn't able to make some of the training camps, even develop any chemistry with these players. And the Olympic team is really, it's based on individual talent, but also how that talent meshes. And you have to get some time in, you know, and for practices and just playing together and see what's what for you to be able to make that decision. And if she's not there, then how can you properly evaluate it? Yeah. That's definitely a part of it. And the other part is she might just need to rest.
Oh my God.
You know, the one person I wanted to hear from on this was Rebecca Lobo, because she went straight from college to the Olympic team, and a lot of it was a marketing based decision because she was with UConn, and they'd won the championship. She was super popular at the time. I believe they went 35-0, and she was a big piece of that. And the 96 Olympic team actually toured and played together a year before the Olympics to sort of gauge the interest and put these players out there, because eventually they were going to be the cornerstone of the launching the WNBA. You know, it was this big experiment, and she was wrapped into that. And she talked recently about how hard that was, how there was no rest, how she was being pulled in 10,000 different directions, and mentally it was exhausting and it was incredibly hard for her to manage. And I gotta believe that Caitlin's dealing with some of that same issue. Like, the girl might just need some downtime.
I think it's a good thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Caitlin Clark having like a month off or 3 weeks off or something, just to be a human being, is going to be fantastic for her. I think that's honestly like a silver lining, a huge silver lining. But yeah,
agree.
I'm absolutely fired up for it. Let's just do fun random predictions. Here's a 2-part question. Who do you want in the WNBA finals, and who do you think are going to be in the WNBA finals just right now? Obviously, plenty of basketball to play, but it's fun to say, like, who do you think is going to be there?
This is tough because the top teams right now, Connecticut, New York, Minnesota, I mean, they're all really neck and neck. Vegas is still Vegas. People are speculating because their record obviously is 7-6, but I still think there's too much talent on that squad, especially with Chelsea Gray coming back to count them out in any way, shape, or form. And I feel like because they're not dominating the way they did last season and imposing their will on everybody, and they were just playing at an astonishing level, that even though they seem to have dropped off, they're still a really good team.
Yeah.
Those 4 right there, I'm not sure that Phoenix has enough on the defensive end, because once you get into the playoffs, you really need some stout defense to be in that conversation. So out of Connecticut, New York, Minnesota, and Vegas, those are the 4 teams I see vying for the title. I would love to see Connecticut get one, because they've been so close over the years, and they're like, what more do we have to do? So prediction wise, man, that's tough. I kind of want to see the season play out a little bit more before I choose but those 4 teams are, I would place bets on those 4 teams.
Who do you want to win?
Who do I want to win? Well, we're not supposed to have favorites, as people who cover the league, but man, I'm a Phoenix Mercury fan. I've been since 97. Have always loved them. Strassi fan as well, especially when she got drafted to the Mercury, and love BG. So I would love to see Phoenix just, get another one.
Yeah.
Especially if I doubt this is Strassi's last year, but you never know. That would be pretty sweet, especially after all that BG has been through. It'd be cool to see her get another one as well. So fan wise, that's where I'm speaking of. But from a coverage standpoint, I'll stick to those 4 I mentioned. But fan wise, if I wanted a team to win, I'd say Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, I think this playoff and this push after the Olympics is going to be some of the best basketball we've seen. I mean, the teams are just loaded. Those 4 teams are loaded. Absolutely, those are the top. Obviously, I want the Liberty to win every single year. I think we're so close, and we just don't pull it together. So I don't know. It depends if Vandersloot comes back, but we've got some new fun, exciting players, and Jonquel Jones is just having a season. She looks so much better. She looks super fit. She looks super excited to be playing basketball. So I do think if there is a year, given the little bit of a Vegas slide, Connecticut gets so close. I don't know. I mean, they could. I mean, they obviously could. I think the dream matchup would be for me. Obviously, always got a soft spot for Phoenix, but the dream matchup for me would be Connecticut, New York, because if New York has to lose, I would love to see Connecticut. I'd love to see the Bonner, Jones, Alyssa Thomas. Like, I'm such a Alyssa Thomas fan. I'd love to. Stephanie White has just been an incredible coach. If I have to lose, I'll lose to Connecticut. But losing to Vegas would just kill me. But I also think they're 7-6 and they could literally not lose again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's possible because
Yeah.
Chelsea Gray comes back and within 35 seconds, she's smoking a behind the back pass to Jackie Young. And you're like, oh God, here we go. Here we
Here we
go.
go. Here we go.
So,
Yeah. That's why I'm like, I want to see from, maybe ask me
yeah.
that question after we reconvene,
Yeah.
after the Olympic break to see where things are at.
Yeah. Yeah. Barring any injury, I feel like it's Connecticut. I still feel like it's like last year. I feel like it's a Connecticut, New York, Vegas showdown at the end of the day. But
We
oh
can't
my
count
God,
out Minnesota then. There we are. We can't
I know.
overlook Minnesota either.
Absolutely not. But I do think that's like a 5-game series that they don't win at the very end. But who knows? I mean, Collier's a dream. And she's like a mom. These moms playing at a high level shame me. I'm like, I need to be more with my day. It's too much. And you wrote a fantastic book and I need to plug it. And then you and your co-author are going to come back in the fall during football season. It's called Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. I just had Dr. Jen Welter, pro football
Oh
player.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had her on last week. And I learned a lot about football that I did not know. And we did a deep dive into, women playing football, but this is a true deep dive. Just tell us how it kind of came together and why you were interested in doing this.
Yeah, I've always been a football fan, born and raised in Buffalo, New York. I'm a Bills fan, obviously, and I love the sport. I loved playing the sport. But there were times in my life when I was told I couldn't play the sport. So when my co-author and I stumbled onto this league, it's one of those gems of his a sports history story that you stumble onto that you're like, this needs to be told. And once we got into the research and discovering that this league existed in the 1970s, which, this was a time when Title IX just happened and women weren't able to play sports in the same way as men, and what they were doing at the time, playing in this league, playing the sport they were told they shouldn't be playing. They were unwitting activists in a way. Once we started talking to the players who are now in their 60s and 70s, basically they just wanted to be able to play football. So to have this opportunity to play at a pro level and to bond with other women who come from all different backgrounds and all different classes and all different races to form a team and to have this bond, it was something really beautiful and pure that we wanted to share. And I'm just so glad we were able to do that, to help tell the story of this league. And there's a lot of sports history stories being told, but a lot of them have to do with men and men's sports. And there's so many women athletes and women's sports teams and like this, a whole league that have sort of fallen by the wayside. And we need to fix that. And we need to tell those stories because they're an integral part of sports history as a whole. So just glad we were able to do that.
This has to be a movie. This is the League of Their Own
It
football.
should be a movie. It is. We've said that, and we're in talk. We've talked to people about it, and so hopefully maybe something will come down the line. But just more people need to know about it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to come back and we're going to do a deep dive on the book, but I'll start obviously promoting it. And I feel like this is just a fantastic time. Obviously, we're seeing the culmination of decades of work from these amazing athletes that are finally, getting their stories told on different platforms. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface. So I'm so excited. Everybody buy this book, Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. You are a pro, and hearing all your thoughts about the league and the inside stuff is just so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an enjoyable conversation. I never pass up an opportunity to talk about women's basketball.
So that was Lyndsey, beautiful sports mind. I loved her take on all the hoops stuff, especially the point she made about the NIL. I hadn't really thought about that because I know March Madness has exploded. So why isn't it transferring more to the WNBA? And so I thought that was such a great takeaway. And definitely buy the book Hail Mary because I'm on I don't know, chapter 3 and it's just fantastic. All right, people, the feel good moment of the week. We're going to keep it in the world of hoops. get your Kleenex out. That's all I'm going to say. So the Olympic roster obviously was announced with our 12 superstars. And USA Basketball, you can find all these videos on YouTube, by the way. USA Basketball filmed these moments of them telling the players that they were going to make the Olympics. And every single person, like they're blown away, right? You could see how much it means to them. There was tears, hugging, holding up jerseys. These videos are so emotional. They're so raw. They're so real. And there's three of them that really stand out. And those are the three people going for the first time: Alyssa Thomas, Sabrina Ionescu, and Kaleah Copper, right? So Thomas goes in and, she gets it. She gets a jersey. She immediately calls her mom and she's like, "Mom, I made it." I'm sobbing. And then Sabrina gets totally choked up and, hugs. It's so feel good. These players grew up watching the Olympics like all of us, and now it's like their dream coming true. Okay, Kaleah Copper. This is, if you just watch one, this is, all of them are the feel good moment of the week, but this is the feeliest moment of the week. Kaleah Copper, she got traded in the offseason from Chicago to Phoenix. So she's playing with Griner and Diana Taurasi, an incredible trio. She's composed in the beginning, and then she starts crying. This is when I lost my mind. I must have seen this video like 5 times. She's saying like, "Oh, all the hard work," and then she starts crying and saying through tears, "You don't see what it takes, how many nights, how much work goes into this. But to get this in year 9 is so special." I don't know how I'm actually talking into a microphone right now. It was... I can't even do the video justice. I'm just saying, go on YouTube and watch this video. Year 9 years in the WNBA. She's already won a WNBA championship. She was the MVP, but I don't know, constantly getting overlooked, is now absolutely flourishing with the Phoenix Mercury, has been on the USA Basketball radar, obviously, for years, but wow. So yeah, check out those videos. If you're having a moment where you're like, I don't know, you feel down or you're like, what am I doing? I need some inspiration. That's where you go. And that is our show. Stay safe out there. Don't get COVID. Fans, friends, family, have the best week of your life.